Hello, I'm Dean Fell, President and CEO of the York County Regional Chamber, and I'm back with this week's Taking Care of Business Through Advocacy. The House of Representatives took their version of spring break last week. I guess the hard work of deciding how to spend $14 billion in passing the House budget warranted a mini vacation. However, the Senate was hard at work, and they were in session, and we saw action on several fronts. First, the Senate Finance Committee held subcommittee meetings to work on their version of the budget, and they appear to be on track to meet their scheduled deadline of April 27th and march toward the end of the session of both legislative bodies on May 11th. As expected, the Senate Finance Committee amended and advanced Senate Bill 557, or the Apprentice to Income Tax Credit, which would increase the amount of credit a corporate taxpayer can use to reduce its income tax in exchange for employing an apprentice. The Senate amendment now caps at $5 million the total aggregate credit available to all taxpayers. The Senate also advanced the Forced Combination Standards Act, or Senate Bill 298, which would limit the Department of Revenue's ability to require combined unitary income tax returns for corporate taxpayers. This is a bill that, as I mentioned last week, only an accountant could love, or at least understand, and it gets into the technical requirements for when affiliated entities can file separate tax returns. It does have a significant fiscal impact. When it was filed in January, the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office anticipated that the general fund would see a reduction of $80 million if the bill becomes law. Put a different way, this means if this bill passes, it will result in an $80 million tax savings for South Carolina businesses. This bill has strong support from the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce. Two pieces of legislation that may be starting to move include the South Carolina Craft Beer Economic Development Act, or Senate Bill 566, that would remove some restrictions on how much an individual can purchase to go from a local craft brewery, and it would also allow breweries to distribute up to 2,000 barrels of beer per year without being subject to the state's wholesale distribution legislation. While the bill received a favorable hearing in a Senate Judiciary Subcommittee, it remains unclear if there will be the consensus needed for it to continue to advance. So for all you guys paying attention right now, how many pints of beer are there in a U.S. barrel of beer? How many? Let us know in the comment section. Second, the Senate passed the Alien Land Ownership Act, or Senate Bill 576, that would forbid corporations controlled by foreign adversaries from buying land in South Carolina. The bill passed by a vote of 31-5. Speaking of concern about foreign adversaries, I wanted to mention one item out of Washington, D.C. last week. Congress held hearings about the TickTock Act, and infuriated lawmakers grilled TickTock CEO Xiaozhu Chu, revealing bipartisan concern with the Chinese-owned social media platform. There appears to be growing support for legislation banning the app's use in the United States. Now, I know many of our small businesses struggle with decisions about which social media platforms to use for marketing, and based on this week's congressional hearing, you may want to consider whether TickTock is a long-term solution before making future investments in time and money in growing that particular marketing on that platform. So check back next week for more updates on South Carolina legislation. Once again, I'm Dean Fell from Taking Care of Business Through Advocacy at the York County Regional Chamber.